Hey gang, welcome back again to Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy, where the proof is in the singing. I'm continuing a really interesting series called Replacement Singers, Who Did It Better? Next up is Black Sabbath. Now, Black Sabbath had a lot of singers, but before we get started, if you don't mind, please like and subscribe to my channel. That'd be really cool. I have a singing course for you guys that are interested in learning about singing or getting really good at singing. You can find it right here at kentamplinvocalacademy.com. It's called How to Sing Better Than Anyone Else, where I also have a free singing forum over there as well with 25,000 singers all talking about how to get great at singing. Now, I want to kind of go through here. I'm gonna get my glasses. Yeah, I gotta wear glasses these days. Sabbath had a lot of singers. Of course, we had Ozzy Osbourne. Ron Keel had a little stint there. Of course, the real second singer from Ozzy was Ronnie James Dio. And then Ian Gillen had a little bit of a stint there too. Tony Martin towards the end. Glenn Hughes was also in there for a minute. Ray Gillen. Wow, can't wait to talk about him. Dave Walker, we have Dave Donato. There's quite a few people that stepped up to the plate for that. But I say that because I only really wanted to focus on Ozzy, Ronnie James Dio, Ray Gillen, and Tony Martin, because I felt like that was sort of the crux and the core bulk of the singers that sort of stayed around for a while and really made an impact. So let's talk about this first. So now, first thing is that when we think of Black Sabbath, most of us, I think of basically four guys. I think of Ozzy setting the precedent of like the ultimate garage band, the ultimate metal band, the ultimate almost kind of dark goth metal in some sense, right? And then I think of, when Ronnie came in, he just had a whole different approach to the band. Which also then led to, and again, Ray Gillen, who left us way too early, I can't believe what an influence Ray Gillen has been on me as a singer, because was like a high-range Ronnie James Dio. And then, of course, we had Tony Martin. We'll get to that now. So let me just go ahead and play some of this stuff. You guys can decide and tell me what you think. Let me get rid of this here. All right, here we go. Cool grooves, you go, right? And so he's got, a very interesting approach. One of the things that I think is mesmerizing about Ozzy is that he's got a monotone thing in the way he sings, but it's very seducing. And so you're kind of like brought into this psychedelia of his approach to singing. So I thought that was really interesting because it really fit Black Sabbath early on. And I know that he even said that Tony Iommi didn't like him, and he was going from like roadie to singer or something, and really kind of treated him poorly. And then Sharon Osbourne picked him up, and he became Ozzy, and Black Sabbath sort of did what it did. But really cool tunes, and he certainly has a flair about him, and some phrasing stuff, and some droney sort of stuff. War Pigs, all these different songs are so good, and they really set the dark metal psychedelia gothic-y kind of thing way before everybody else. So metal, real metal. Look how young he is there. Now, and given, I know he has limited range and stuff, but he's spot on in his singing. And I've seen him live a lot of times, and he's always been spot on in his singing. So, you gotta say, man, Ozzy was, one of the original metal singers. Really, true story. Crazy stuff. Now, this is obviously Dio. This time in Dio's career and the way his approach to, by the way, let's go back to Ozzy for a minute. So, I know the sunny up and right? So he's like really kind of drony in his sound. He's got a lot of mask in it. Everything's kind of around the same range. So if you're singing like Ozzy, you know, crazy, you know, crazy train, you know, and he's got this really yeah. Now when Dio steps up to the plate, he is the epitome of an authority singer. Okay, we all know this. And I know I've done things on these same guys over and over again. You say, why do you do the same singers? Well, it just happens we're doing this series right now, and these guys all came from the same band. But when Dio came in, he was extremely throaty on his sound. Listen closely. Really growly, cry out, right? When you hear his stuff later, he had developed more open throat technique. Now, what is that? So right here is, you can really hear a lot of force in the throat, okay? Later, when you hear this, by the way, I did a version of this. I'll put that in the description. I've done a few Dio things, and I've done some with some of our other students. So I'll go ahead and put all the Dio stuff I have that we've done with me and my students. I'll put that in the description so you guys can click on it and look and see how we did. But he goes from this really throaty, growly sound, and he forfeits a lot of range, right? Now, later on, and I did a version of this, you gotta check it out. He does a version of the Mob Rules way later on. Holy cow. Wow, it's just, oh my God, you just got to check it out. Anyway, but so here he has a really growly, throaty sound, but he completely raised the bar. Remember, what is our criteria for who did it better, right? Now, it's going to be really hard because this is going to have to be given over to, you know, a person's personal preference, because Ozzy has this very unique, specific thing. And what was our criteria? The uniqueness of the sound. Did the replacement singer raise the bar? And did any of these singers, as they replaced the original singer, did the original singer go on and continue with their careers and with creativity? Both of them did in phenomenal ways. So it's really kind of an odd thing. You're going to have to tell me what you think in the comments sections. But there was, again, criteria. Now, a Dio sort of came out of nowhere, so to speak, and as did a couple other guys we're going to talk about in a minute. But wow, they both had just incredible careers. Ozzy's was probably bigger in a commercial sense, but in a vocal sense, I think Dio certainly set the bar so high for metal singers that it would be impossible to beat, maybe with one exception we're going to see coming up. Check it out. Now you can kind of hear somewhere between him starting to open up his throat when he goes up higher, because he can't growl that high. It's just kind of impossible, okay? We talk about a raised laryngeal position and getting caught in the throat from kind of heaving up your vowel sounds or having so much mass in the throat that you're dragging it from the bottom and getting stuck in the throat. So we see later that he moves away from that sound and has much more of a fluid open throat sound and lets his tone, his harmonic distortion do his work for him. And we've talked a lot about, you know, how to get good harmonic distortion like this. I'll tell you what, so that you guys can check it out. I have a couple of videos on how to get to this kind of distortion. I'll put that in the description too, so you can see how to get to glottal compression, which means compressing air at the glottis right out, you know, to instead of right, it's right ah. You got to open to the ah vowel. It's the la, ah. I cover all this in my singing course where we build muscle memory to keep the throat open first. Then we can compress the air or cut back the air, get that clean first, right out, and then right out, right? And then you can add the distortion for effect, provided that you keep the throat open first and it can be sustained by the abdomen or good diaphragmatic support and breathing. So anyway, let's continue. Very interesting stuff for me. Now, this is Ray Gillen, and I said Ronnie would be tough to beat with an exception. I don't know that he beat Dio because they have different voices. You can tell his voice has a much higher range, but it's as though he was Ronnie James Dio kind of taken up a third in his placement, in his sound. So Ray Gillen for me, and then of course you know him from Badlands and you know whatnot, working with Jakey Lee. But man, what a talent. It's such a shame he left this early. I would have loved to have known what he would have become down the road, because listen to this. Now, again, in fairness, if Dio were to have done the mob run, he would have been girthier and fatter and has a bigger sound overall as far as his overall harmonic resonance in the sound. But his placement, and I even like the fact that he kind of sings sharp a lot, because sharp, done correctly, sharp can be exciting. Flat is like, ooh, it's flat. But when you're just a little bit on top of the notes, where you have total command of them, where it doesn't sound like the notes own you, you own the notes. That's kind of the way he approached his singing, and he did this in Dreams in the Dark, like all the different songs later in Badlands and stuff. Amazingly talented singer. And like I said, don't forget, there is a version of the Mob Rules you got to check out. I got a chance to do a version of it, and I was allowed to do it with the publishing companies that allowed it back when I did it. And then they just decided, no, we're not going to let people do it anymore. So they grandfathered some of the stuff and still let it stay on YouTube. And then when I went to go use it, just even to juxtapose these pieces together, they wouldn't let me use it. So bummer. Now, if you notice, he goes, roll! He's on an up vowel. He doesn't go, ooh, rules! He doesn't do that. He goes, roll! And he's using different vowel placements to get to all these places so he doesn't get caught in the throat. It's called vocal tract shaping, and I cover all that in my singing course too. How to go from one vowel to another and not feel like you're getting stuck. Like, why can I sing this vowel or this word at this note value, in a scale or something, but I can't sing this note like ooh or e or whatever. He's compensating for those vowels. It's called vocal tract shaping. I cover all that in my singing course. Now, I want to point out something else that I find really interesting too when I talked about sharp singing. There's someone else that does this a lot, a couple people actually. Bruce Dickinson, he sings sharp to the track a lot, but it's really exciting. And Michael Kiske from Halloween also sings kind of really sharp. And there's a couple other guys too, but it's really interesting to hear him do this because there's a little element of Bruce Dickinson and Dio sort of combined in this. And why I find that fascinating is my understanding is when you find out who Bruce Dickinson's influence was, he comes out boldly and says Dio was one of his biggest influences. How interesting, there's this sort of triunity going on of these guys all having very similar interests. So Dickinson's inspired by Dio. He was also inspired by Dio, obviously. So that's not by accident, it's by design, okay? Here we go. I love the tubularness of the it's like really round and like it's shaking the house when he sings. Pretty cool. And by the way, I did add, even though this is a terrible recording, I did favor a little bit more of Ray because I just feel like he's such an unsung hero and I really want people to know more about him because it's worthy. So hang in there with me a little bit and check out a little more of him because I think you'll really appreciate this. I probably added too much stuff, so let's move on to Tony. But man, if you get a chance to check, I forgot where I got this footage, but holy cow, it's just so good, so good. So let's move on to Tony. Now, Tony's a little different kind of a singer, and again, we have to really be careful to say when we say what's our criteria. How long did they last? Well, Ray Gillen died of AIDS early on, so it's not really fair to say because we don't know where he would have gone. We've seen where Ozzy went, we saw where Dio went, and now let's move on here. That was the end, Ray.
We made the mountains shake. We left off as we played. Hiding in our corner of the world, yeah. Then we did the demon dance. I was to never throw away the key and lock the door.
Now, with Tony, I've got to say, I think live, there's no doubt in my mind, I favor personally Dio, I favor personally Ray. Ozzy, to me, I don't think of him as the ultimate singer. He's a character singer. So I'm not trying to model my voice after Ozzy. I'd model it after Dio or Ray. And of course, I'm not trying to take anything away from Tony. Tony was a better studio singer to me, though he did a killer job here live. But I think Dio and I think Ray kind of have him beat, personally, though he stepped into a really difficult role and he's seriously pulling it off, but just not quite at the level that I think of Ray or Dio. See, even at that, when we think about range, right? I sort of feel like he's at the top of his range. And when I listen to Ray or Dio, I feel like there's a lot more to go as far as the headroom that they have in the range. And I really grade a lot on that because I grade a lot on how much of a street kind of sound where people get locked down in their voices and can't really, go up like an octave above that if they want to relax the voice from a technical standpoint. No, I'm not trying to be too technical, but I am a vocal coach. And so I look at things like, how do we get to this sound safely? How can we reproduce it night after night? How can we not just be great in the studio, but be great live? And so I take into consideration all of these things, not to diminish or take away anything from his awesomeness. He's an incredible, oh my gosh, how many people get to this level? But I do have to also pick apart the stuff that I do hear and see in order to be able to help you guys get better at singing. I love the way he sings this. Okay, now I want to point something else out. If you noticed, and we talked about Ray Gillen being a little sharp, their vocals were absolutely spot on. It wasn't like they struggled in any direction. I mean, just spot on. So it's kind of a bummer to sit there and say, oh, I like, Dio and maybe Ray above, Tony Martin or whatever, because his singing is so good. It's just that we're comparing everybody at the very, very, very top level of rock and metal singing that, like, but if you were to put him in the camp of like a lot of other singers, he would absolutely crush everybody. But we're just like at the very top level of that kind of singing. So anyway, tell me what you guys think. I want to hear from you. Please put in the comment sections if you've got some other performances you think are better. Again, it's really hard to get good performances and try to grade everybody on one performance, so that's just not fair either. But especially look at Ray. Ray had a pretty crappy, I don't know, somebody's webcam or something way back when, and yet he still was able to shine through that. So thank you for joining me. I've got more of these coming your way. Don't forget I have a singing course called How to Sing Better Than Anyone Else for you guys interested. Click on KenTamplinVocalAcademy.com. You can check it out, and definitely check out my next video.